ready?
Okay. I call to order the April 23rd, 2025 URA board meeting. Roll call, please.
Board Chair Letts,
Here.
Board Member Predin,
Yep.
Board Member McDougall,
Here.
Board Member Ross,
Yep.
Board Member Pellerin.
Here. Thank you. Due to some staffing issues, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit. We're going to go right to the financial projections and financing update with Joe O'Neill first.
Yeah, thank you. So Jordan and I will kind of tag team this topic here. So just as the agency gets close to the 2030 date of its project completion timeline, staff wanted to make sure that we were kind of maximizing the potential of the urban renewal agency. And so we did a couple things that we've kind of talked to you about already, but the first one was we want to make sure our maximum indebtedness is correct. And so when the agency started in 2003, that maximum indebtedness was set at about $10 million. And then since then, different staff has been here, and we've had projects that have affected that maximum indebtedness. It goes down as you conduct projects and expend money. So that was number one. So we engaged a financial team that kind of specializes in urban renewal agencies, and we were able to ascertain that maximum indebtedness actually pretty darn close to what we already had, which is great. And so we checked that box, and so that meant we have about $6.7 million left of maximum indebtedness in the plan. Now, keep in mind that the 2030 timeline is just for projects. You can serve that debt past 2030 with the tax increment financing. So they're kind of two different timelines that we're working with. And then the second part of that was, okay, with the maximum indebtedness, how much do we have left outside of the project list that's already been adopted by the agency? And that leaves us with about $4.9 million of money that's available and left for us to do projects in and above that project list. So that's good. That frees us up for other projects to continue or conduct, for example, Adams Avenue. And there's a little bit extra room in there, before 2030 as we're paying off that debt to potentially maximize those funds for. So that's potentially a conversation that, we'll have later as far as, what those projects are. But for now, I think it's a positive note that number one, we have that maximum indebtedness capacity, and then the debt service capacity to do some of those projects as well.
And there may be some new projects. So there's some councilors want to talk about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I mean that is the main point there. A lot of the details are served in the staff report. But other than that, that was kind of the overall summary of kind of the financial scope of what we were trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, so this was a goal, I think, for the current year was to look at our TIF, look at what our maximum indebtedness is currently, because we have this 2030 kind of soft deadline that we had committed to not issuing any debt past that date. So the bottom line good news is that we can go out and we have 6.8 million left in maximum indebtedness that we can use. And then on top of that, good news is that gives us the capacity to then go issue some debt up to $4.2 million in the next fiscal year to use on projects, right? So, you have a chance now to look at your look at the plan and look at the projects that you have on your list that haven't been funded. And one of them being Adams, which is around that amount, $3.5 to $4 million. The council had talked about, or the board, had talked about other goals such as business assistance grants for dark skies, building hardening in the downtown, art acquisition, enhancing public art. I think I threw in there as a goal. And then, any other things that fit within the plan, property acquisition, additional downtown amenities. So
in the zone,
in the downtown zone.
In the zone.
So between now and then, you have capacity to do those projects, and then on top of that, we are still able to do the projects that are funded and planned in the current year that will probably roll to the next, the roundabout art and landscaping, west side pump station, and workforce housing. So you're in a good position. We have options on the table, and we have the capacity with the tax increment that's coming in to get a sizable amount to fund a big project and other small projects too.
All right.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume that when he goes, you can still.
Yeah.
Do some rounds and stuff if we start talking weird numbers.
Sure. I mean, when we come back to goals, I mean, we'll be revisiting these numbers in this list.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just double check.
Yeah, I've got a little time, so I'll be right. Okay,
Awesome.
and if you have any other questions about more specifics related to the analysis, just please reach out.
Good news. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the consent agenda?
Sure. All right, I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'm going to approve the consent agenda. Board member Creighton.
I second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
A.
Aye. Or A. J. All right, now we can move to visitor communication.
I have Kathleen Narango.
And for those that came earlier and then came back later, thank you. Sorry about the long meeting that postponed this one. I apologize.
And usually with visitor comments, we try to limit comments to about 3 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
that won't be a problem. Regarding the roundabout, I think there's not enough consensus to choose either one, so I would like to urge the council not to vote on either one of the two selections that have been made. I would also encourage the process to change if this is paused and we're going to do it again, to involve the council. I don't want to settle on something. And I think if enough people don't agree on one or the other, that we should do another call to artists or consider a donation.
Thank you.
That was the statement. Very good.
Scott Tellerin.
Scott Tellerico, here in Town Sisters. I'm the president of the Sisters Rodeo Association. We've had a lot of concern about the roundabout. The concerns from the locals of what it looks like, what we voted on. Obviously, Sisters Rodeo would like to see something different. We'd like to see something more country, more western, more something that feels right to our town instead of what we got there. I just have a few questions about the process. So is the process set in stone the way it is? Yeah, I think you guys did an outside consulting firm to put this together, correct? Is that not correct? So you guys made the decision?
This isn't a time that we can really go back and forth, but we will address the process when we discuss this.
Okay.
topic.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So I think we should just maybe open that up just a little bit more than just voting on these two. Maybe a little late in the game, maybe we're there. But I think I don't know how much public opinion there was on this thing, and shame on us that we haven't stepped up earlier to talk about this. So I would kind of mirror what she said. I wouldn't want to just settle on what we have out there. I would want to take a look at maybe being able to do something a little more Western that fits our town a little better. I think you'd go around about on the other end. Whoever did it did a great job. That's a great looking roundabout. And I'm not an artist, so I only have my opinion, and I'm not making an opinion for anyone other than our membership has been very concerned about what they've seen and how they feel about it. And I would just like to take a second look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're, what's that? Okay.
So,
I just wanted to say something, because they didn't address it. So Mike Davis, I've got a shop in town. I don't live in Sisters, but I have a business here. The two artists that you picked, Karen Yank, who's a very professional lady, and it's probably why she's on up there. She did a roundabout in Bend that's almost exactly the same. She's done one in Albuquerque, she's done one in Nebraska, she's done one in Carson City. They basically all look the same. So if we just want to do,
sir, your name?
it's Mike Davis.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. We want to do the same thing that they're doing, which I think we should run from Bend. My own personal opinion. I mean, blur your eyes a little bit, they look exactly the same. The other guy, again, no knock on the artists, they're talented folks. The other fellow from Eugene, I mean, CNC metal panels. I don't know if you guys are into art or not, but that's not art. You take a CNC machine, you put a program in it, you can put your face, you can put this quilt, the machine cuts it all out and you put it all together. Those don't represent Sisters. And like everybody said, we shouldn't be settling. I don't know the whole process. I know it's late in the game, but this whole process was very difficult. I know one of the guys who tried out for it, Dirk Godby's here. I tried to help him a little bit. I mean, you need a law degree and a math degree to figure out that process. You wanted him to run traffic plans, construction, landscaping, all this crazy stuff. That's not really what an artist does. Maybe the Karen Yank, because she's a pro and has done this a million times, has a way to do this, but I think we shorted the real artists that represent this community by picking out one who was probably way under budget with the fellow figure, and the other gal because she's such a pro and knows how to fill out paperwork. But do you want the same roundabout as Bend or something close? The other thing too is I don't think we need to read 100-word document out there to understand the roundabout, and you need to understand what those two are. I think you need to see it, and it makes an impression on yourself in this town. I think the ex-mayor said it last year, 1 million plus something folks drive down this road every year. And we want to have one of those two out there. Again, not knocking the artists. They probably did what they thought that was right, but I don't think it's right for Sisters. As Scott said, whether you like it or not, the Western way is what Sisters is about. I'm a business owner. You guys want signs to look Western. You want the buildings to look Western. Those two aren't Western. So that's what I have to say.
Mike, can I have that, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
If you are on Zoom and wish to speak at visitor communication, please raise your hand. I see none.
All right, thank you. This brings us to the item to discuss the next steps to roundabout art at US 20 and Locust. And Marie Foster, Assistant City Manager, will walk us through this process.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. In your staff report, I've outlined this process and the timeframe that we worked through here, started back in April of 2024, where we put an RFP out. We also, in June of 2024, put out a survey to the community, in May of 2024, put a survey to the community that asked what should the Vails in public art from the US 20 to Locust Street Roundabout. There were 1,087 respondents. The theme that was chosen at 37% was Western heritage and culture. And so that was how we put the RFP together for the artists. The RFP process was done on the Cafe website. Cafe is a site that is used for a large number of art calls. So it's a very well-known national site. We put together our peer review committee in June of 2024, which the council was aware of, including 3 artists and business owners, like art teacher, metal manufacturer, all who have lived in our community for a large amount of time. The RFP was developed with guidance from the committee, from Oregon Department of Transportation, and input from the RP Public Places, which is the selection committee that then uses for their art They are well versed in writing good proposals and getting those out to the public. So they were very helpful for us. Solicitation was put out on July 12th. And by September 13th, we had 36 proposals. They were reviewed by the committee. The committee determined at that point that they would like to revise the RFP and release a second call for entry. There were good proposals, but there was nothing that they thought was what should sit at the entrance of our city. Second call was posted from November 8th to January 7th, 2025. 53 proposals were submitted using Cafe's online process again. Committee reviewed those proposals in 3 separate jury rounds and decided on 2 finals, Karen Yank and Dana Chan. On February 7th this year, the 2 finalists met with the committee on Zoom to give and receive feedback on the proposals. And then they were given 6 weeks to produce their scale models, which were put on distribution for the public between March 15th and April 2nd at the Sisters Library and the Sisters High School. During that time frame, 612 people participated and made a selection. Of those, 219 preferred Karen Yank's private place, 380 preferred Dan Chen's through time. 9 people wrote in that they did not like the choices, and 4 people asked us to move the wild sounding statue. I received 12 emails directly, and of those emails about the art selection, 4 people did not like the options. We received 1 email today that was forwarded to council about the work as well. On April 11th, the committee met to score the 2 finalists based on the criteria in the RFP. When those totals were scored, Karen Yank had a place at 74.8, Dan Chen was down at 72.2, with the major difference really being in Karen Yank's score on experience. She has done a number of roundabouts. The committee talked at length about the proposal and what they were seeing, and decided not to recommend either piece to the board. They discussed Karen Yank's piece also in depth, and really I talked about modifying her design and my conversation with them, the types of modifications that they might select were likely to alter the appearance and extend the delay on the timeline for the installation. So tonight, what I'm looking from the board is decision of direction on selecting artwork for the roundabout and moving forward with an alternative process. I proposed 6 options, and options 1 and 2 being choosing either private place or through time. Option 2 is choosing 1 of the 2, but with some artist modifications, which would potentially result in a delay of the installation of the art. And then working from our guidelines, art guidelines, I put together 3 other options, which would be potentially call for artists and open competition, which would be similar to the process that we went through. A call for artists by invitation, which is where you invite specific artists who have done similar type work or work that you're looking for, and work with them through the committee. A direct purchase of artwork and or donation applied to that category as well, and or establishment of the process as determined by the board. Moving forward with options 2 through 6 would likely delay the installation between 6 and 18 months. And so it's really up to the board at this point. If they have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, and or conversation amongst yourselves about the art.
Thanks, Carrie. First of all, I want to thank the committee for going through 89 proposals. I'm sure that was a lot of work, and I appreciate the time that they donated to the city to do that. But I am concerned that only 2 bubbled to the top, and although there were votes made in preference for Dan Chen, sometimes I wonder if they just voted because I only had the 2 options, so this is all I get, so I better vote. That concerns me.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Were these basically just kind of like, these were really the 2 most viable? Or was it you just wanted to have it just down to 2?
Yeah, we had the option of up to 4 finalists was what was in the RFP proposal. And as the jury process moved forward, it narrowed down and narrowed down. And really, they came to 8 at one point, and they had questions for the art. So I actually went back we took the questions from the committee and interviewed the artists or talked to them and asked them the questions. And then came back to the committee with that. And that's from where they narrowed down. It was from anything from potentially not enough experience. And this is a big installation, right? This is not a small thing. And we are not asking for, we are asking them to work with our landscape architects, yes. They are in charge of installation. They are in charge of making sure that the footings or the pad that the pieces on is put in correctly. They're in charge of getting the right engineers to make sure the piece is engineered and will actually work in that thing. And that's all, the majority of that laid out by ODOT because it is a highway. And that was one of the pieces. We've actually already signed an agreement with ODOT. There's quite a few rules that ODOT actually has in place. Some of you might know this, but not all. We were one of the first roundabouts, if not the first roundabout on an Oregon highway that had art. There were not many rules or regulations when we put in the last one, and there's a handful more now that do. And ODOT actually just finished writing these right as we signed our agreement with them. So there's quite a list down that ODOT requires, which would be different than if you were doing a roundabout on a side street or as you see them down all over this and stipulations.
Well, thanks for that clarifying question. Yeah, I am okay with a delay to get this right. I don't think anybody will complain. Why don't we have artwork yet? I think they will complain if they don't like it. So the 6 to 18 months, I'm actually okay with that. I would like to just have clarification around what an open competition call is versus an artist by invitation only call.
So part of one of the pieces that in the staff report was that if council decided not to move forward with the finalists, that I would need to go and at least build somewhat of a framework for what those look like. But in general, we did a call for artists and a call for proposal at the same time on this, which meant that we wanted to look at the artist's body of work, which we asked for, and then we also asked for a rough proposal of what that art, what they would put in here would look like. Call for artists would only be a call for the artist's work. It would not be a proposal. The committee or however the council chose to do that would actually decide on an artist. We would probably go back and look at themes or what he would like to do. And then from that, the artist would come up with a proposal or a piece. Or you could do that. I think you can do that and have, 8 people come up with those once you've selected that. That would entail paying those artists for that time as they're developing that proposal. And then from that, you would narrow down into finalists again. So it'll be a little more lengthy than the process that we did this time based on that, because there needs to be more time than not only to develop a proposal, but then to go back and build models of the finalists. And call for artists by invitation only is where you would develop kind of your parameters for the call and what you were looking for and what your theme was. And then you would choose the committee or however you chose would choose the artists. So you'd have to really understand who those artists were, could they do the work, did they have the capability of doing this type of large scale sculpture or whatever they're doing within the budget. And then you would choose from those artists who you want to bring to the call and give them the parameters, and then they would bring proposals to you as well. So it's a little narrower there in that one, but there's still some framework to be built on that.
And how do you decide which artists to invite?
That's part of the piece that when I walked through this and I said that, I would need to bring this back to another workshop to really determine, so council could have, the board could have that conversation about what they wanted it to look like and how many people and what region. We were open up, we had a regional call, so we went really with the Western states, just to get a broad spectrum of people's skill. But you can narrow calls down and broaden calls up. Our call for the other roundabout was a nationwide call because we moved federal funding and it had to go nationwide. So they got all, kinds of different things coming out.
Couple of things. The budget is pretty set. We have a set amount of money in the URA to do this with. We have a set amount of money that ODOT's contributing. ODOT's writing rules, but ODOT's not contributing it. Like we're doing this yet. But we have to follow ODOT's rules because it's there. So, and I'm responding to actually one of the comments that was made about all the rules and regulations and their artists and they don't know how to do that. It's part of the process. We can't change it. ODOT says we have to do it. So we got to do it. Don't have to like it. Don't have to want to, but you're dealing with the state. And if we don't do it, there would never be anything other than a mound of dirt. And so I want to be clear on that. So anybody who's thinking.
Can I talk about that? I don't think that ODOT has as much control over the process as much as they have control over installation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Not the process of choosing.
Right. No.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
But
We did have a member of ODOT on our selection committee, a non-voting member. But what we did in preliminaries, both times, when we put up at 56 and 53, is a review by ODOT for the ability for them to stand up. So car parts in them, absolutely not. Moving parts, nope.
Water
The
features.
number that didn't make it through based on ODOT's criteria.
course.
And then these two pieces actually, prior to putting them out, had to go through ODOT again. They asked some questions about height and all the pieces that they, so ODOT does have a say, but not in necessarily the process.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that. 'Cause I think that was a little just.
I
not misleading intent.
wasn't there yet.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So, and also, since it's a firm budget, projects that came in that were significantly over the budget were taken off the table because there was no way to include those.
There were a number of reasons why proposals were taken off the table, whether it was, didn't include budgets, over budget, not complete proposals. This is a pretty known, Cafe is a pretty known site for artists. If you went and looked on that right now, you would find a number of municipalities, government agencies that use this to procure art.
Right.
Very standard for what's done.
And so when we go back out again, assuming that's what we're going to do, and it's sounding that way to me too, we need to understand the ground rules. Everybody in the community needs to understand the ground rules, which is that we have restrictions on us as to what we can and can't do. We have a budget that restricts us as to what we can and can't do. And so that's part of it. Now, related to a comment that was made about the art that looks like Ben, I did read the artist bio, and there was a statement in there that kind of concerned me, which is this features a circle, my signature in every piece. So the circle is something that she does, that she works around, and she's an artist. That's what you get to do. I want to also say to members of the community that the team that was put together to do this, they were skilled artists that live in our community. They were people who know what's in the community. So it wasn't like they went off on a tangent and went for something in Bend or went for something that was cut on a CNC machine. And remember, that is a model. But, there were things about that I didn't like too. So I just want to be clear that if we push this down the road, which I think we're going to have to do, or we want to do, at least I want to do, that it's not going to be as simple and clean as walking down the street and picking somebody or going to an art show and saying, I like your work. It has to be far more than that. Plus the amount of the contract is such that we have to go through a public proposal process by state law. And so just so you're aware, and so finally, I guess what I would say that, the other thing that this does is it takes another piece of the budget away from the work, because there's going to be a cost associated with doing it again. There'll also be a cost associated with paying the folks for time and stuff. So there'll be a little less for work. Now, we may be able to figure a way to make some of that up, but I'm not making any promises to that at this time. So that's where I am. I guess I'm with the do something, send it back out. I'm not sure which one I would go with, but send it back out. And when we talk about landscaping later in that project, I would really prefer that we put enough landscaping up to stabilize it, but nothing more, because whatever gets done, when it gets done, involve a tremendous amount of construction to place something that big on a highway that won't topple over and crush somebody's car. And that means that whatever landscape we put in is probably going to be pretty disturbed. So I don't want to spend a big amount of money landscaping that roundabout until after the art's selected and in place. I'm done.
Do we have that option?
Yeah.
Didn't we already approve the landscape?
The landscaping, you don't mind me setting in, the landscaping is would move forward because it's not just the landscaping for the roundabout, it's the landscaping around. That contract is in place. What potentially I put in the staff report is that if you decide not to move forward with either finalists and seek another option, we request that we just move forward with the installation of landscaping in the interim. So that landscaping contract is approved and is being planned right now, but it will just look a little different in that if you decide not to move forward on that middle section.
Okay. First of all, thank you to those two artists, but not just those two artists, all the artists. I mean, you know, artists put themselves out there. It's fun, but not easy to do. Thank you, Carrie, for rolling this out twice. But I have to be honest with myself and what these two last options are is not the sisters' way. They're okay for other people. I think our bar is just way, way higher. And I have to just stick with that. You know, I think about our city manager process where we had to say no to some perfectly okay candidates, but we waited for the right piece of art to be our city manager. And he's sitting right there and he does a great job. And I'm not kidding, you know, I'm not kissing his butt. He's good. He's working. He's worth waiting for.
Yeah, go sit around.
And I think
we're just going to get a cement chair, stick it up there, and there you go.
We're not going to put him in the roundabout. So we're going to get a good piece of art that represents the community. I don't want to be too hard on these artists, but I look at these scores and the public input scores are a little low. But here's the one that jumps out at me. Look at the scores. The originality score on Pride of Place was 13 out of 20, and the originality score on Through Time is 11 out of 20.
And that's from artists.
And this is sisters. We need something original. We need something that screams sisters, not just says hi, welcome to sisters. This is the nose on our face at this roundabout. We have this new thing. I think it's totally worth waiting for. I think that there's some great concepts out there that can be done. I'm not even worried about money because I think people in the community come up with money. I think that there's artists out there that know people that may find some help to add to the cause. And if that's the case, if that's really the case, then the world is our oyster. We can get something that's bold and beautiful. And maybe we haven't seen it yet. Maybe we have. I don't know. But I think for sure the right thing tonight is to stop the process where it's at. Again, no offense to these two artists. Stop the process where it's at. Decide what we want to do. We have a lot of flexibility here. I mean, there's, direct purchase artwork, establishing of the process. Great thing about being an elected official is we have some discretion. And I think we should use that discretion or something. And I don't think we should even try and decide tonight. I mean, I would like to be able to say, yes, here's what we're going to do. But I think it's more important to end this process as gracefully as we can tonight and then have some discussions about what we want to do. I think that it's too important to just choose what's in front of us just because that's the two finalists. And I feel pretty strong.
And I just thought of one other thing you brought it up, and that was that in my discussion with Carrie, I think that some of the artists proposals were eliminated because all of the casting and work would be done overseas, and we really wanted this project to be something that occurred within the realm of the United States, bronzing and those sorts of things. as opposed to say China or somewhere like that. And so those are minor considerations, but they are things that that particular committee did look at in making determinations of one over another. So for the folks in the audience.
And I think it's perfectly acceptable to ask artists.
Yeah.
Not just budget and other things, but hey, can you really get this done? Do you have is it you, or is it you and a partner? Is something, how are you getting help with the engineering? It's good to know those things. And I think
so too.
I think that, if we don't cast as wide a net and somehow tighten it up, I don't even know if it's, can you do just local artists or Oregon art? I don't know.
You can pick your region, your area.
Yeah. See, I think, and people that know sisters that have been around here, doesn't have to be absolutely somebody in town, but people that have been around here that knows sisters history, that can buy into it right when they get there. I think that that's so important. I just think that these two are.
Sarah, I'm okay with not choosing a piece of art tonight, but I do think that we need to be clear if we're going to go back out there. The committee followed a very specific process. There were two parts to the process: one, picking a theme, and then next, going out for art. I think we're going to have to provide really good direction of what we're expecting. I think there's going to be an impetus on us to come up with a lot more specific ideas rather than just trying to have, we're going to need to put some scope around this to help whatever committee or however this process goes forward. Obviously, there are a lot of limitations. I did talk to Carrie about the budget. That's that amount of money limits the types of materials that can be used and still get something that's structurally sound and looks nice, fills up the space well. The horse, it's great budgetary idea to move the stallion, but the size, there's so many things that are just not right about that. I think if we say, let's stop here tonight, some of this is going to be on us to really put our heads down and do some thinking about how this might go differently, not because we know better, but because we're asking for something different. And we need to be clear on what that difference is.
Just as it has come up a number of times in this discussion, we did, as a committee, talk about the cost or the amount, and they were all very on board with that. Was a good amount for the art that we produced. So nobody in the group said that is not enough to put a piece together for this round.
Like I said, runs in China. Like
Yes,
but
so that's part of that decision. And lastly, I think that if we do this and you send something out, I suppose in the proposal there could be something that I'll go into what Michael Frieden said, Councilman Frieden.
Board member.
That's right.
Yeah.
Board member here. I'm not sure what to call anybody in this. If an artist is proposing something that's significantly out of the budget or even somewhat out of the budget, they need to provide how they're going to make the difference up through donations and other things. So it's not our job to go out and find those donations. The artist who's making the proposal has to be able to bring to the table those people that they think are going to be able to underwrite the portion that is not being funded by the URA. So I just want to be clear about that I don't want
to legally be done, correct?
We can take donations. We have to talk to legal counsel about it because it may be a case that we chose somebody to want money in an escrow account or something like that to make sure that funding is in place.
Exactly. And that's the thing. But my point is that I don't want the staff to be put in the position of having to go out and run a fundraiser to put the art up in the middle of the roundabout. So for those proposals that come in way over budget or significantly over budget. Yeah, that are good proposals. You know, the counter proposal goes back and says, well, this is how much we've got. Explain how the rest of this is going to be done, and we'll need it in escrow account before we do the award. I think that's fair. Or whatever the appropriate language is according to legal.
That could be one option.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, just so that we don't eliminate those folks that say, well, I can't do it for this amount of money, but we also aren't on the hook for the amount of extra money they think they need.
You don't want to complicate the process too
Right.
much either. Because our staff and team have already worked really hard on this. I'll say, obviously, lots of, you know, people. It is art. It will never please everybody and anybody, and that's part of the joy of art. Is it's always a matter of discussion. That said, you know, people ask me about the process. I had a long conversation with Carrie about the process, in which she kind of lined out tonight, which was very helpful. I mean, it was a very strong team of people, local people who worked on this. Again, this is an ODOT project, and there are rules around that. And you know, a lot more rules than the first roundabout from 10 years ago. And I think in the process, what I realized, and I'm going to discuss this with Sarah, was that we're not looking for art to go in a roundabout. We're looking for roundabout art. And those are two different things. Because we're not looking for the best, shiniest, most awesome, beautiful piece of art. Those pieces of art we want in our community, but those pieces of art deserve to be better interacted with, be in a public place where people can go up and look at them and touch them and interact with them. We also don't, a roundabout art can't be distracting. You almost don't want it to be too pretty, because it is in the middle of a lane of traffic. And I think you kind of put it, what did you say, fine? The art would need to be,
Well, yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay. You know, obviously we wanted, you know, to be safe. And if it was something where it was attracting a lot of attention, and obviously ODOT's considerations are distracting, right? They don't want anybody to be distracted by something, you know, movement or something shining or a reflection or a deer that looks like it's going to jump out into the road. As much as I like the animal ones, you know, there's that, but also just if people are, you know, so in awe of a piece of artwork that they're going across lanes of traffic to go get their picture taken next to it, that is also not creating a safe traffic environment. So I think that's something that really kind of clarified the process for me a little bit, that, and I was able to kind of look at those pieces in a different light, and, you know, because I had my opinions as well, but when I went back and looked at them, I was like, okay, I see why that these pieces were where we landed. And so I just want to put that out there, that I know that we want something nice and reflects our community. However, it is in the middle of a lane of traffic, and we can't forget that part of it. And, you know, we've discussed within council and staff our desire, I think, collectively to ensure that we promote and have more art within our community in other places. I mean, I think that's been some of my frustration here, is that there's a lot of art, and there's a lot of stuff that you can't interact with. You know, the stallion is kind of on a pedestal in a weird spot, and I think that's something that, especially with, you know, large bronze, or, you know, just something like that.
It interacts well with cars.
Yeah, you know, it attracts vehicles. But yeah, you know, I think we want those things in our community, but I want our community to be able to interact with them, and we don't want our community to be interacting with our roundabout arts, except looking at it from afar as they go around the roundabout.
So that means we shouldn't put Jordan up there in a chair.
No, because he's just too much of a work of art. So personally,
Too much movement.
Far from. So that said, I personally could vote on one of these tonight, but I am one of four at this point. So, it sounds like we are going to, if I'm hearing everybody correctly, we're going to pass on these two pieces of art. And also, maybe that's a question. It's not like we,
Also was ready to vote tonight if that. If
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I heard three people speak for me a no.
Mhm.
I would say that I am ready to vote if that were the
Okay.
if that's where we had gotten.
Yeah.
And I think my situation is that I would vote that I'd be holding my nose because I really don't care for either one of them. And I also looked at the fact that the vote was pretty evenly split. One looked to me like it's a giant gear and needs to have another gear inside of it and go around in a circle and drive a wheel. And the other one represents transportation that never exists in this town, and so I would do one or the other, but I really think the best idea is to wait.
Yeah.
So next steps would be scheduling a workshop with the urban renewal board to kind of discuss where you'd like to go, how you'd like to move forward. And likely to be 4, 6, 8 weeks. I would imagine we'll have to do some work to get ready for that. Or the process goes, I can have information on it. So that
The dirt pile's not going in.
well, it might blow it, but it's not going to any places.
Yeah, just to clarify, delaying this would, push this process out at least a year.
More than a year,
More than a year.
probably
18
for
months.
installation, minimum of 18 months.
Okay, so we're looking at,
Because building those, once they go through the whole process, then for the artist to build those is up to, in a short span of 6 months. We're in April and we weren't expecting installation until November.
Yeah.
So
so we're looking at 2027, just to clarify that for everybody.
I'm totally okay with that.
And also, just to reiterate that it was, I don't want to get this wrong. The theme is Western heritage and culture. So that is again, something that can be widely interpreted as well. And everybody up here, if we drew a picture of what that meant to us, we would have 5 completely different pictures.
So we should go.
Yeah.
But we can
But I-
revisit that too. We
Yeah.
can revisit that too.
Maybe.
And say,
Just kind of
let's be a
fun.
little more specific about what we want. I
Right.
mean, we have that
We could.
ability to do that, so.
Yeah, we could do that. But it is, even though it is a topic, it is pretty wide on what Western heritage and culture could be. So, just kind of reminding the community that as well.
I think the community will have some input about what, now that there's this pause, and it's sure to be in the nugget.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the community will.
Unless the
guide
reporter
us
felt-
that, and I'll never want to take the public out of the process for
Sure,
Right.
absolutely not.
As
Yeah,
much latitude as we have,
Right.
I don't have I don't have the fortitude to go forward without the public.
and I think we need to just be prepared that this second round, could be as challenging as the first.
Yep.
It's art.
Third round. It could very well be.
We could end up with some solicitations with the same scores, but we just need to be prepared for that. All right, thank you. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, URA goals, Jordan.
I feel like URA goals always gets the late May. Okay, so this will be kind of a continuation of the conversation we had with Joe, in terms of what the capacity is with the district funds and tax increment in the next 5 years. So the big decision point for the board, honestly, is the Adams Avenue streetscape project. Our cost estimates are somewhere between 3 and 4 million. We'll be on the lower end of that, but we're budgeting, or we would plan to budget somewhere in the ballpark of 4 million. So 3.5 coming from urban renewal, and we also have the parking district fund that has, I think, at least $350,000 that we've been saving up over time for a project like this to add more parking capacity in the downtown. as you heard from Joe, there's additional capacity for other projects. And I think when we met last month about potential goals, there was conversation about business and development assistance grants, like for dark sky lighting, wildfire resiliency, especially for implementing space or building hardening or and siding, things like that in our downtown. And then continuing the theme of art, there's an opportunity now with the mobility hub, the project here at City Hall, where we're looking to do a demonstration landscape for defensible space and water conservation. You can put an art pedestal here. I think we have some other ideas where maybe art will be added in the downtown. And so I kind of threw that in there as a potential goal for you to consider. So these are draft goals in your packet. And again, they're kind of fed by the information we have in terms of what capacity is for projects in the next year. We chose confident that we can secure financing pretty fast if we wanted to get that $4 million, tomorrow. Probably not tomorrow, but it'll take a few months to do that. All things we can need to get going on Adams, this
Tuesday.
year. You're telling me to speed up. And, so it's either a project that can happen, starting this summer and going into winter, or it's a project we wait until, next year to secure the financing and get that rolling. But we have 100% design for that project. And so for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's the continuation of the downtown streetscape planning that we've done with Darwin Cascade, that we've done Maine. So we're extending that out to the next downtown street with its spur, hopefully private investment along that corridor. Habitat for Humanity, we'd probably try to coincide with their improvements. Either they would pay to do a fee and remove for us to do the improvements, or they'll be building that portion of that project during that project. Councilor Ross or Board Member Ross, yeah.
Well, I'm sticking the mud in the room. I also want us to consider property acquisition as we look to opportunities that are presented to us within the community, especially around the concept of a public service campus. And also with the idea that as the city grows, this building may become crowded as staff is added, and we may actually need to have the possibility of an annex. I say that with apologies to some of the people in the back of the room that are probably going to hate me after this, but I think that we need to consider negotiating with the district about the possibility of that facility staying in public hands as opposed to going through a zone change. And this is the URA meeting, so I'm not going to talk about my opinion on the zone change. That's for another day, another meeting. But I think that we should consider whether or not this is something we want to try to do within the URA or to do in some other way. But the opportunity is there, and I think it's to the benefit of the city for that building to stay in public hands as opposed to becoming something else. And I'm the voice of one.
Yeah, my comment on that would just be, I don't think we have enough information yet to know how that would look in terms of the impact to the renewal district versus other funding options. And there's a conversation that probably
I just needed to fire the shot across the bow. That's all I needed to do.
Is there not enough funds to do both Adams and that?
I think there's the potential for that. We just don't have that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's in their process.
No, I know. And the price might look a little stupid just because it's such a good piece of land right there.
Well, and
But zone
this
public,
came up,
so
I
it's not
think,
going to be
I
worth
think we should not discuss like any financials around that type of potential, just because we do, this is a public meeting and they're gonna have public meetings and, we should wait and, in my opinion, we should wait
Yep.
until they decide what type of financial situation they're in and in what direction they're going.
I think that's obvious.
I think that's, I just wanted to be clear to the URA board that I'm thinking that that's something that may be appropriate for the URA board to consider should the opportunity present itself. And that as we look at how we allocate the funds that are in that amount of available monies to keep in the back of our mind that we may need some of that Possibly. I mean, it's a long shot, but I also think that if we don't examine that and see where there's a possibility, we're not doing a service to the community.
I have a question on how confident we are in the cost of Adams right now. Like how fresh of the estimate is that?
A month old.
Okay, fresh.
And good, what was
That's
that?
fresh.
3.5 and 15% contingency.
And with the amount of interest we're seeing in other things, that may garner a lot of interest.
Good.
Might be 2, but it could be 10.
So, you know, back to the updated financial projections. On top of the 4 million that we can go and finance, there's additional TIF that will be coming in for available for other projects in that time frame of 26 to 30. And so in that table, there's the other projects at $203,000, you know, over the next 4 years. There's the 50,000 feet downtown amenities. So you still have options on the table if you want to look at leveraging those funds for things like property acquisition and other projects.
I want to speak on Adams Avenue Streetscape. Since I think I've worked on it since the concept came on, I don't know, 7 years I've been on council now. So 3.4 million to transform add a whole nother block to downtown, I think is excellent thing for its block. And I think that can't be overlooked in the sense that that's going to transform a whole nother street to the downtown core. And yeah, the properties aren't going to roll over overnight. They're not going to change overnight, but at least it's going to set the sidewalk through the street and the drainage and the utilities, everything on that street will be ready to go for future investment. I think for long-term viability of Sisters, I think it's kind of a no-brainer that the money's sitting there. It's just waiting to go. And I'd really like to see that get started. If whatever Paul or he thinks is, you know, time, I think it's really smart. I think it gives us, instead of 3 streets, it gives us 4. So 4 east to west avenues. I think it's going to be fantastic. I still think about those medallions at each section. You know, it's something we don't have anywhere else even. It's going to be the nicest street in town for a while until we improve other stuff. But for 3.5 million or whatever, it's going to transform the city, to be honest with you. So I'm all for that, and would love to know what you guys think about that particular project. I would go with whatever you say. If you say let's start this summer, I'd say let's do it. If if Public Works is confident in their capacity, I mean, we all know Paul, right? He's been with us for 22 years now.
Right now, you just were looking for, acceptance of the goals list is
Right.
that written.
Or modified, and we can bring back. I think the timeline, why I have it on the schedule tonight is developing the budget, just knowing what we should. I mean, and we can always just park, an amount in the project fund, and with the assumption that we don't have to, get down to the actual projects tonight. If you want to hunt on setting goals and then kind of wait for the budget process, and there's more information that comes out and work through this. And we can even try to find time to talk more about it.
I think the reason I brought it up wasn't so much is there money, how much money there is that when we talk about goals, I think one of the goals should be for us to consider whether or not that is a viable facility to serve this town, and also to maintain the concept of a campus in this area, the library, this building and that building. I apologize, Public Works, if I know what old buildings are and how much trouble they can be. I've owned a number of them from the school district, so they gave me a lot of sleepless nights. But at the same point in time, it's built in 1930. It's an historic building. It's the gateway of the town, and the public's already paid for it. And I think that we need to consider whether or not it's a URA project or some other project. Don't get me wrong, but as we talk about goals
Or combination.
or combination, but as we talk about, as far as Adams goes, the money is there. I agree with you. We probably do need to do it. And that may mean we need to find finances somewhere else to do that facility if that's what we want to do. But when it comes to the goals, I want to just get that on the list. And it may not happen, but these are goals.
It could be a goal that's
Just
a generic
explore.
property acquisition, or,
Yeah.
for future public,
Yes,
facility.
yes, public facility. And I'd rather have that be an annex that's going to be one that say the building on Main, just because of location of it and that sort of thing.
Who said we can't have both?
All right, so
Reasonably.
are people feeling good about the goals in front of us and with the addition of bullet point on for
Property.
property acquisition in URA?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
I am.
I think we'll know more about that particular project in about a month or two,
Yeah. I just wanted to get in front of where I'm.
Yeah, I certainly, would like you to get some goals in front of you for budget because a lot of these are works in progress already, so. Don't want to hold anything up.
That'll be a generic acquisition.
Yeah, I'll work it that way, yeah.
Thank
And-
you. This
And
is-
that you can tentatively approve tonight and come back with the final.
Well,
So we're gonna have another year.
You're gonna have more URA if we're talking her, so if it can be decided at the next.
well, and I also think that, I think I mentioned it at the joint meeting that I had an interest and where we were at on that. I think that these discussions are going to happen at a much higher level than us. It's going to be probably with our CEOs and
There's nothing higher than us, buddy.
CAOs, excuse me, but citizens.
Yeah.
So your church.
That's schoolwork.
And, that's all. But I also think that knowing ahead of time that we have some interest may guide how they go about what they're doing. It's kind of like the roundabout project. Do we want to go 40 miles down the road and then see you get it back up 20? It's not fair enough.
All right, that what you need?
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I'll adjourn the URA meeting.